Welcome to Talk on Tones. I'm Sarah Thomas Moffat. I'm a director of photography, collaborating with Quasar Alchemy over at Quasar Science. And this is our series, Talk on Tones. Let's get to this.
Hi, I'm Nicole Leier. I am a director actor based out of Los Angeles. I'm so happy to be here today and interested to get into really talking about this because it's always challenging, I think, to have these conversations, but also very, very important to have these kind of talks, especially in our industry. Part of me is always like, we shouldn't even have to do this anymore. But then the other part of me is that it's so important to keep educating and to keep being a part of the conversation. So thank you so much for having me here today, Sarah.
Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate your time. Vicky.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me as well. I'm super excited about this new project I'm working on. I think it's extremely important that we are aware of what's been happening for a very long time. And I see a lot of changes happening for the future, hopefully. I'm a makeup artist in New York City and also in LA.
Great, fantastic. And Vicky, you are also a really fantastic painter. Can you tell us a little bit about your artwork?
It's a multimedia process that I do where I paint the background, I paint the model, I also paint a canvas, a plastic canvas in front of the model, and then I photograph her at the end, and the result is an image of everything that was painted, including the model, the background, sometimes the clothing. And then I also do collages with all my artwork, editorial work that I've done through my career as a makeup artist. I've done a lot of beauty stories for numerous magazines. And so I decided to make collages out of them, and they were shown at a gallery a month ago. So it's super exciting. I get to do, I get to recycle all my work as well,
What inspires you to do that? Like because a lot of your work is emotionally driven. There's a lot of speech coming through those still images.
As a makeup artist, you always have to do what the client usually requests you to do. And then in my painting is sort of like an explosion of all that feelings, all that those times of being holding back, of being able to express yourself. So instead of putting lipstick on, I just splash paint all over the body, and there's no beauty per se of like eyeshadow or a lipstick. I used to do a lot of beauty work for magazines. So being able to express myself without any sort of direction from anyone, including myself. Because most of the time, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the image is going to be like at the end, because I've just come up with, a subject, a person that I really like, and, we like each other. She likes my work, but I like her. And she comes over, and I just, whatever I have available, I just throw it there without any sort of guidance or references. I love making a woman beautiful. I love that. But also with my art, I make her beautiful in a very different way.
Absolutely, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
Which kind of circles around to talk on tones and what we're narrowing down in here today. Nicole, in your experience, both in front and behind the camera, how does that resonate with you? That beauty is in the eye of beholder feeling?
It as a director, absolutely, because when you're directing, it's kind of whatever you have envisioned, what is beautiful to you, and what you want the audience to see is what you really have the camera focus on. Being in front of the camera, there's also a sensitivity. You want to look your best, or sometimes there's the saying of you only win an Oscar when you look your worst. So I am more of an artist who loves that kind of thing, like some of my favorite work is when I looked not so beautiful. And so, yeah, it is true. And I think that it changes from story to story to story. You know, for instance, for my last project, I was just directing Love and Chocolate. That was a film where we had to have everything quite beautiful, as in what we're talking about, the perfect eyeliner, the perfect, and I love what the makeup artists do. You know, the conversations you have, but also the art that makeup artists are able to help you with. And maybe there's some features that you want to, you know, like even on myself, when I was in front of the camera, I think it's the safest way. Sometimes, you know, I want to see more of my jawline and less of this. And it's true that certain things with the camera we do highlight, but I love what the makeup artists do. And I also love seeing beauty in different ways, because I think a person can be, dare I use the fingers again, but ugly and still be beautiful. And I think that that's what people want to see. I think we're leaning towards more, I guess what I'm really talking about is just being real. Right? We don't want to see these layers of, they got into this thing. I know a lot of the teenage last year or something, like baking, where the makeup was like so thick. And I'm sure, Vicky, you can speak more to this, but of course in film, for us, less is always more. So yeah, so it's an interesting thing. It's definitely, it's something that I lean towards the, hopefully, I hope as an artist and as a director and actor, I'm leaning more towards the reality and being real. We always strive for that, because I feel that true art, when it comes from your heart and from your soul, and it just kind of seeps out of you, I think it comes from a very truthful place. And it doesn't matter what that looks like. Some people will feel more beautiful when they're contoured to heck. I know I have moments where I'm like, yeah, I want all of the things. I want, you know, I want all of that kind of stuff, and I'll feel more beautiful. But I think the important thing at the end of the day is that we feel beautiful for ourselves, because when you feel it yourself, then you emanate this energy and other people pick up on it.
It's true.
Well said. That's fantastic. And can I ask you the deeperness on that as women of color? How deep does that go for you in today's world?
I guess, first of all, you know, I love and I respect you so much, Sarah. And I think, first of all, I just want to say, like, I'm so proud of you, because this is such a brave conversation for someone like yourself to put together and to ask these really hard questions. But for me, I will challenge you to say, why is this even a conversation that we have to have? And why is it a conversation that a woman of color has to have? I think this is a human conversation. I think it's an everybody conversation, but I do understand the question, and I am very proud of you, and I want to support you in having these difficult conversations, because I don't think it's easy to ask these questions. I'm sure Vicky wants to add to it.
I agree, 100%. I agree with you. It's a very sensitive subject that we've been dealing with for a long time, I think, you know, and for both sides, you know, to be able to understand, not just our side or their side, you know. I think for both sides, it's always been a very difficult conversation to get into, because people don't know how to, or how to approach it, what words to use, you know.
Mm-hmm. I really think it's all about, just if you have a question, just as Sarah has done, or if there's something you want to talk about or you don't know, just ask. There's a thing where, like, hey, I'm asking, I don't know. I do that all of the time, and maybe sometimes I don't do it as much as I should, but I'm a huge fan of just being like, hey, I don't know, can you explain this? You know, like, I am a high school dropout, and I've been very lucky, but I've also busted my ass to get to where I am. And one of the things that I think some of my hope, some of my success has come from just when I don't know, I just ask, and that being a kid, like, I really don't know anything. And I like to pretend that. I'm sure some of the crew, when I'm directing, would tell you otherwise. I am very bossy as well.
Well, you gotta be bossy when you know what you want.
That's true. This is true.
Because not everybody's in your headspace.
Yeah.
And to be able to understand, for anyone to understand you, you sort of have to take over sometimes and be a little bossy. I was doing a job for Mary Claire magazine, hired me to do 6 of my artwork, and to be able to, you know, have assistants, because you're doing assistant, to be able to produce what you produce by yourself, you know, that you can do all of that by yourself, but then all of a sudden you need the help, but to be able to, you know, sort of communicate with the person what it is that you are doing or what you need to accomplish, it's really difficult because they only see the image, oh yeah, I can do that, but no, it's how you got there and how, you know, with experiment, you got to that image that you created. So then to be able to explain to the other person that is helping you, it's really hard for them to get into your head, especially when it's creative, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes. I mean, it's a huge thing. It's communication is a huge part of it. And sometimes I'm good and sometimes I'm not. And
You're
I'm
not
still
perfect,
learning.
we're human.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I appreciate both of you talking about that openly because they are difficult questions. I feel comfortable asking them because I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable with humanity, but I also agree with both of you on that. It should just be a human conversation, not necessarily an individual, you know, pinpointed discussion on an identity. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, I don't feel, as a society. And especially when it comes to cinematography, if I'm still getting asked these questions in job interviews for narrative work, then it's still a concern for producers and executives and some directors as well. So it's interesting and very valuable that you open up about this. And I really, really appreciate it. Really, really grateful for that.
This is something that I actually haven't shared publicly before, but everybody knows that I've been in the industry my whole life. The film industry really saved my life. And I came into it young. And one of the things that I did when I was a young girl was I was a stand-in. And Vicky, I'm sure you will have stories like this, but I remember I was standing in on a show and we were in Vancouver, and I was hired as the stand-in, the same height, these things. And one of the things the cinematographer made me do, and it was absolutely ridiculous, is he basically was like, you are not Black enough to stand in for this character. Our skin tones were actually very similar. It was summer, so maybe she was a little bit tanned, or I had been in the studio working, so I was, you know, I tan. We all tan. We all. There's different. Yeah. For sake of the conversation, we're having tones. This cinematographer, if I guess for me at this point, I wouldn't even give him that title, but he actually basically made me put blackface on. And so every day I was like, I had to go to the makeup trailer and had the, you know, and then it causes stress and you're like, oh, you know, all of these things. And the wonderful first AD was, you know, stood up and was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, having a lot of friends that are cinematographers and being a director and having my own education of also lighting. You know, I work at a company where I'm responsible for a little bit of the lighting and the cinematography. I know exactly how ridiculous that. I didn't know that then, but I know that now. And I think that it's this thing that is in our industry. It is a level of under education. And it is something that has been able to survive because it has been fed through this boys club or through this like, oh, we're cool. We can do this and whatever, we do it better. And this is the normal. And I was very disappointed. And when I think back about that, it is very upsetting that the cinematographers are asked this because I guess I'm not upset. You know, they have to understand that it's more light, right? You know, there's more light, but it's not something that should be such a thing that you're having a young girl put on, you know, or having the makeup or go to sit in the chair, and like basically punishing her because she's not the right skin tone for you to light off of. If anything, for me, when I look back at that, I think that he shouldn't have been the cinematographer. I think he's a shitty cinematographer that didn't know how to light. Personal.
Exactly. That's it.
Personal opinion.
That's it. That's what is at the end. That's really what it comes down to. Is I've been on set. I don't do films. I do more stills, you know, and I've been on jobs where the photographer there were different skin tones, and the photographer didn't know how to go from this skin tone to that skin tone because she didn't know. She didn't know. It was not enough experience, I guess. You know, you really have to know lighting. You really have to know your lighting so you can, you know that you have to do some adjustments or whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, you know who gets blamed for everything that happens? It's the makeup artist. The makeup artist, until they figured out, you know, how to manipulate things and then go about. Because I've been there many times where I was getting blamed because the photographs, the model didn't look beautiful enough. Yeah. But it wasn't my fault. It was the lighting.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me. Because the makeup was perfect and I showed it to the client on daylight. That's when you can see the reality. So I look at the makeup, it's like this. Then the girl goes on set and the skin looks completely different.
Thank you for sharing those stories. They're very, very powerful and really important for people to listen to, because I feel that part of the purpose on Talk on Tones is to allow people to share these things so that when people listen, that is where the education, that's where the mindset shift comes in. That's where that deeper understanding of that personal experience of the person that you're working with is actually being negatively affected by your actions, you know? Yeah. So I think for me, I would love to work in a greater film and television industry that has a greater humanity, to be honest, you know, and that's.
Can I ask you a question though? Like, sitting here as an actor and a director, and also, don't you just feel that question though it's a skill question from the cinematographer? Like, it's like they should just like it shouldn't even. That's a skill that all cinematographers should have. It should not be whether we're working in stills or whatever. And it's like, you know, because what they were doing with me is exactly what Vicky is saying. They sent me to the makeup chair so that at the end of the day, because the cinematographer on that show didn't have the skill with that lead character, he had an out. He could blame, per se, the makeup artist, you know, or the stand-in who wasn't the right tone. So how I guess my question is, because, you know, most of my friends are cinematographers and we all work together. How do we fix this though? Because it's not something that we can't ignore it, because the truth is we all three of us know there is more light that is needed. For instance, if I am on a set and I am working with somebody who is very, very, very pale, I will require the light to be turned up or I will require one extra light. And so then it goes down into the racism, into our industry where, oh, it takes more time. And then it goes into, they take more time for makeup. Oh, they take more time for hair. And now we're in a huge conversation. How do we fix this from your point, from a cinematographer? Because I guess my basic thing is this is a skill and all cinematographers should answer that question, of course.
Yep.
Right.
I so 100% agree. And I'm so happy that you said all of that. To add to that, I'll answer that question. And to get you there faster is hire me and hire people like me more often. And that's a general question to the industry, or I guess statement to, you know, the industry itself, you know, people that are skilled, that are compassionate human beings, that do understand this. Why aren't we getting those jobs? So there's that, right? So that's the other half of the equation. But this specific part of the equation, absolutely, in my experience, personally, I 100% agree with you. I believe it should be a mandatory skill. I thought that it was in the narrative world because I had worked so much in documentary and factual, you know, reality type of content all over the world. I learned all of those skills by myself, because when I'm working for the majority of those shows and features that I did in documentary, I'm it. I'm my own gaffer, my own grip, my own DP, my own camera assistant. There's a sound person with me and a field director. And that's pretty much it when you're traveling out there on your own. So for years, I learned all of that on my own through every work situation because I had to figure it out. No one was there teaching me how to do it. I feel that it's work experience. There's two parts. I think, let me split this answer into two parts. I also came from a film background. So I started with still photography as a child. My father really taught me how to take stills. I still have his old camera equipment, all that kind of stuff. He was a painter as well as a photographer, kind of media type of person. And that started then for me. I also grew up in Toronto. Now I am first generation Canadian. My parents are Scottish and we grew up in inner city Toronto. So my baseline for humanity and visual reference for human beings was completely multicultural. That's my normal. And I'm really grateful for that upbringing and that experience. So I believe that that also fed my information of when I'm out in the field of working with people from all different parts of the world, all different languages. Even if I didn't speak the same language, I could still communicate with them. And I really attribute a lot of my upbringing in Toronto to that, and the friends that I had and the kids that I grew up with and the families that I knew. I also watched natural light a lot. I watched how it falls onto people, how it moves, how it plays, and I emulate that through technical lighting tools, whether it was in documentary or reality or anything else. So I can only speak to my personal experience of where my skill set is. Though when I was a camera assistant for many years prior to my establishing myself as a cinematographer, I've been in the industry for about 25 years in total now. I watched a lot of cinematographers. I started as a camera assistant in TV commercials in Toronto, which were very lucrative back then. And all of it was film based. So I'm still in the film world. And I was a camera assistant for a man called Derek Van Lint, who actually shot the first Alien movie. In his last years of his career, he was doing commercials for Tim Hortons and things like that. But he was so intense and amazing with his lighting. He would light a table of donuts and a coffee as if it were a spaceship. Like, it was so fascinating to watch him light and really build depth and color in lighting. And in that first film, in Alien, one of the main cast is a Black man. And so he was dealing with, different colors in a really contained spaceship with dark things. The creature itself was jet black as well. So when I learn from men like that, they're really informed in a completely different world than today. So let's fast forward to today. So now we're in the digital world. And what I see and what I've talked to a lot of people at Quasar Science about is our concern is what we call lazy cinematography, because cameras are so sensitive to light and lenses are so beautiful and fast these days, and they can attract so much light in, that it's very easy for anyone to put a camera up and put a nice lens on and point it at something. And it looks like it's taking a picture that's very flattering, but you're not necessarily lit. And what a lot of gap happens also in that post-production process of color grading. So then people are popping a lens up. So then you have college students that are being taught on digital. They're not being taught on film anymore. So they come jetting out of college and wherever their academies are around the world, and just ballsy out there, not being camera assistants anymore. They're like, well, I'm a DP now. So I've got a red camera that I bought with my school loans, or my parents funded it. And I'm going to go shoot your commercials, or I'm going to go shoot this, because in college, I put together a nice reel for myself that looks really flattering. Now, I'm not saying that people don't work hard, but I am saying that is a complete shift from where I started. And I feel that that accelerated process has lost two things. It's lost respect for the craft of cinematography itself. And then in return has lost that innate skill set that so many older, mature cinematographers that started in a completely different world very much understand. So I could talk about this for a really long time, but that's been my observation. I've also taught workshops along the way as well. So I see that in certain workshops in certain places. And that skill set.
Question, Sarah. Sorry to cut you off. I have a question. So what is the difference between lighting a white person and a Black person for a cinematographer?
For me personally, there's no difference. I would say, generally speaking, it is a mathematical calculation of light intensity. That's the easiest, most generic way to talk about it.
So,
Yeah.
so for the people who are listening who may not be cinematographers, you know, or for people like me who are actors or directors or new. So basically what you're saying, if I may, Sarah, is that if there is a brother or sister, they possibly, depending whether you're outside or inside, may require an extra light, correct?
I will tell you straight up, I did a feature last year, one of those television movies, again, you know, very fast, the quality of light that they desired was that bright, intense, everything's bright.
Commercial, yeah.
Commercially, yeah,
Yeah.
looks more like an Instagram account that's like screaming white, you know. Cast were all Caucasian, and I put more light on a Caucasian person's face and more light sources under the chin, on the side, up here, everywhere, and bouncing in than I did on the Black people that I shot the previous year in another television movie, which has now been picked up by Hulu.
I'm so proud of you. It was a little bit of a trick question, and I wanted you to say it because I wanted it to come from a cinematographer, because it's important that people understand that, because I think this, just going back into it, right? That's what we're here talking about. I think it's a bullshit thing that producers are holding on to. And I think it's an under education. Like, do you know how to do this? That's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I feel it's, and I'm so happy we're having this conversation, because it's, this is what, you know, it's what my desire is to put out there, so to broaden that knowledge and experience, because it's so important on so many levels. But technically, just to keep it there for a second, it is a cinematographer's responsibility, yes. And I personally have no time for people that are lazy about these things and that make excuses about these things and make somebody feel, who is in front of the camera or who is a director or a makeup artist, that it is on them to fix. And it is, in my opinion, teamwork. And it is also in that last moment situation when the talent, not the stand-in, but the talent. I've worked with so many different stand-ins on that sidebar note as well, where they're all different skin tones than the actual actor. Yeah. And I don't say a word. I just do it because I know what the actor looks like. And I talk to my gaffer and I say, look, this is going to change as soon as the actual talent gets in. But right now, this is where we're going, and have that standing by and have it ready. And if I need it, we'll do it. And they're like, yeah, copy. They've got lamp ops over here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm set. So as soon as that actual person sits in, if I need to bump them up, whether they're white or Black or brown or yellow, I'm ready, you know, and that's a non-issue. I take it on myself, cinematographer, to make it a non-issue for anybody else. And I feel that that's a responsibility and part of my job. And I'm happy.
Very proud. You know? Very proud of you, Sarah, for that.
Same.
So let me talk a little bit about the technical aspect of lighting. It's a reflective image off of your skin. So light travels, the image that I'm seeing of you on the computer is actually a reflection, because it has to bounce from the sun or the source in the room off of the object to the eye. So everything we see in life is actually a reflection. So that reflective surface of all skin tones of everybody around the world, it's like a fingerprint. Everybody is different. And there is an undertone in the skin itself that is different. I have lit people that are Italian, that when, you know, they look one color when I'm looking at them, when I put a light source on them, they change color inside the camera. And I have to adjust, and it's not, I have to, it's not, it's just, I'm something I'm aware of. I know I'm going to have to adjust the color temperature in the light source to make them and their skin tone reflect into the camera as they are. the true likeness of.
It's, you know, it's the same thing as like when I'm directing and I look at that and I'm like, oh, I don't like that, get a 50. I don't like what I'm seeing on the frame. Or like, you know, I try not to, as a director, call too many lenses, but if I want to see more or less or whatever, and it's just, this whole conversation, I knew that it was coming one day for me. And I'm so fed up with it. And I think that so many people are, because, excuse my language, I'm so sorry, but it's such bullshit.
Yes.
It's a bullshit thing that we have going on. And one thing I will say, and I'm so sorry, Sarah, I don't know if we're allowed to swear or whatever. I know it's, thank you for having us, Quasar. I really appreciate it, but it's, you know, it's really upsetting. And one thing I will say that's positive, and then I will let somebody else talk because I'm such a talker. I apologize, Vicky. But one thing
I love it. I'm learning.
Me too. That I have learned is that some of the studios, and I have a very close friend who's a cinematographer, Brendan, who does Truth Be Told here at Paramount, is that they are actually having them sit through retraining. So, and not just retraining for what we're talking about, but also retraining, for instance, and I am just going to say, I don't agree with this term, but for instance, in our industry, we have a light that is called a redhead or a blonde. Or there's other terms like this that have come from, and they're changing all of that. These are not the terms that they are able to use. And I am so proud of the studio for this re-education, because this is a huge thing. Like, that's been hundreds of, like, literally from the beginning of time. Even I, you know, and we don't think about, you know, they weren't called that, but then all of the jokes that come off of that for the lights being called blonde, and like the jokes and that kind of stuff, and they're no longer called that. They're called the actual light names. Sarah, you will know the names of the lights better, but I was very, very impressed. And I think that is like the start. Like, if we're being aware of what we're calling the lights, why aren't we being aware of the fact that there's no excuse to say that it takes more or less, or it's a problem, right? Because what is really being portrayed in our industry is that sometimes if you hire a person of color, is that it's a problem. Right? We are a problem to have on set. We take longer. We cost more money to do our hair. It's bullshit.
It's crazy.
It's exactly the same. But that, in the root of what it is that's what it is. And I think it must have come. There must have been some person a long time ago that possibly didn't have the skills that we are all talking about that should be mandatory, and they accidentally took 18 hours to light somebody because they thought something, and then this thing came to fruition, and now here we are.
Yeah.
You know, so
Absolutely.
anyway.
I'll share a bit of history with you on that. Kodak, the first company to make film for cameras, when they started making motion picture film, they made something called the Shirley card. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Shirley card. And the Shirley was a model, a woman, a Caucasian woman. And so Shirley sat in front of the camera for the technicians at Kodak, and they tested every emulsion of film with Shirley and lights. And so for each emulsion of film, they made a card, and they call it the Shirley card. And so they showed people that wanted to buy the film or use the film for movies, this is what your actor is going to look like, because this is what Shirley looks like under the lights with this emulsion of film. And there's different film stocks. So Shirley will look like this, or she will look like this, or she will look like this. And they put one person for all people under the emulsion.
One shade.
So then, so that information, now I can't comment on Kodak's, you know, big picture intention at the time, and or what the technicians were thinking or not thinking at the time when they were doing that. But then you bring in an actor of the silver screen days like Sidney Poitier, and you bring him in, and he's very much underexposed in a lot of his work on camera. And there is no excuse for that. However, all of that emulsion in the film in those days, and the light sources, which were huge, massive light sources that created a lot of heat in a room, were designed for someone named Shirley who probably look like my skin tone. Vicky, if you could touch on undertones in skin, because you're very—
We have, I mean, it's endless. Dark shade could be yellow orange, could be red orange, could be blue red. It's just endless, you know. Your undertones, it doesn't matter what your shade is, can vary from different undertone colors. Like I said, the yellow orange or the red orange or the blue red. I mean, it's skin, you know, and we all have that undertone. Like I'm yellow orange, you probably yellow orange as well, and we are different shades.
Mm-hmm. I'm told I have some red, apparently.
You look, you see, to me, your undertones, they look like yellow orange.
Good, I like that.
I'm definitely yellow orange. And I know people that are, you know, a couple of shades even darker than me that are, their undertones are still yellow orange or blue red. And the same thing goes for the lightest shades, the darkest shades.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cool test you can do as well. And we'll talk about pigmentation and makeup and how that reflects on light sources too, because that's very important. But there's a little test if you're ever curious. Vicky, I don't know if you've done this before, where you can press your thumb against your wrist and then hold it there for a couple seconds. And then when you release it, you will see a different tone as your skin comes back to circulation. And when you see that, that's your undertone. When I see people's faces, even in natural light, I have a very good guess at what their undertone is, which I automatically translate to, if I'm lighting them, I already know what to do. And that's experience. But let's talk about pigmentation and makeup for a second, because if a makeup artist uses a certain pigmentation on a certain skin tone that has a certain undertone, how that reflects from the light sources through the camera.
It changes the skin tone. If it's too light, you know what happens, it turns gray. Anything that is, you know, not the right skin tone will always change. And depending on the foundation that you apply, like it could turn green, it could turn gray. And these are the problems that you find, especially on a dark skin, is if you don't know how to make the right shade. I mean, right now there's a lot of companies that are, you know, within the last, I say 5 years, we have seen an increase on companies, you name it, from drugstore to the most expensive companies, that they have expanded their shades in their foundation. Because they, you know, they realized, I mean, we are huge consumers, you know, we love, everybody loves makeup, you know, and for a long time, like, we just didn't have like either Latin to any sort of whatever country they come from, you know, people with a dark skin, we always have problems finding the right company. But now with, like I said, within the last 5 years, is being a zoom of different companies increasing their shades in their company. And it doesn't matter what price, from, you know, drugstore product to super high-end products, you can now find more foundations available.
What kind of products do you use for professional work, photography?
Mainly I use Maron because I have, like, it's a book and it has every shade you can think of, you know, all the dark colors with the different undertones and all the light colors with different undertones. I like to have that. I also like to use MAC Cosmetics because they have a really nice foundation that I like, because it's very light. It's almost like you're not wearing anything. That's my thing. My thing is about making the woman look really beautiful without looking like she's wearing 7 pounds of foundation, where you can see the pores. Like, I love to see all those, not imperfections, because they're not imperfections, but I love to see the pore. I love to see the skin. I love to see a natural skin instead of caked on with powder and foundation. So I like all kinds of companies. I'm working a lot with e.l.f. and they actually, believe it or not, I mean, not, I wouldn't say believe it or not, because but they have really amazing shades of foundation and they cost nothing, you know. You can play around and buy 5 different shades if you like, because our skin actually, it changes from the winter to the summer. It changes, the color changes, you know. Some of us have darker spot on the forehead or lighter on the cheeks, you know, and then in the summertime, you all even because you're always in the sun, or you're more dark on the forehead than the rest of your face. So it's always good to have like more than one shade, I think, to correct those issues when they do come around.
And how about matte too, like setting sprays to add, you know, a bit of glisten, not sweat glistening, but, you know, reflective glistening, because again, can you use some sort of, you know, bit of setting spray that helps catch the light. So then the light bounces off of people's skin more reflectively, which allows us to read the shape of a face and the contours in the face more without necessarily adding a light source.
There are highlights. There's plenty of highlights. There's liquid highlights. There's powder highlights, so you can, you know, apply wherever you want the light to reflect. And there's powders as well that you can do that, and oils. I mean, I'm not really like, I've done a few commercials here and there a long time ago, but I'm mostly on stills, and usually I'll just use face oils, like natural face oils, or like I said, cream, iridescence, highlighters, or powder, depending where the light hits. You know, like sometimes you want it to look here, not necessarily here, because here doesn't look attractive. You know, no one wants to be shining around here, but they do want highlights here, the chin, the nose, and the forehead. That's where you want to apply the highlights.
Fantastic. And those are different tools and techniques. Again, like going back to your thoughts, Nicole, on, you know, do you have to necessarily walk another light in? No, you don't. You can use techniques and tools like that. And again, that is experience. And I believe that that is a skill set that cinematographers should have. They should be able to talk to makeup artists as much as they're talking to directors, and work on this together. Ask people, how do you feel when you are acknowledged in your work, whether it is an, you know, behind the camera, in front of the camera? What is that, you know, human response to the acknowledgement of you as a human being?
For me, it just, it gives you that little push that as a creator, as an artist, as a freelancer, you need. You need that little push to keep on going, especially when you're dealing with everyday, you know, life issues, you know, that distract you from your creativity. So all of that, it adds to that push that we all need. I think everyone needs a little push, you know, and by acknowledging your work, whoever, however, and, you know, it helps. It helps you to keep on going and wake up every morning and be grateful and keep creating.
Sometimes I'm like Vicky, where I'm like, oh, yay, they noticed. And then other times I'm like, oh, wow, that's feeding my ego. And then other times I'm like, oh, go away. Like I'm in my dark, like, you know, my cave where I'm just like being the artist and I'm like in it. So I go through phases, but you know, I'm very much, I think like what Vicky said, it pushes us, you know, if people are watching and seeing the art that we're making, that strives us to always be better. And then, you know, other times I listen to my gangster rap. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. I'm the motherfucking man, you know, like it's
but also being creative. You already have that insecurity sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Anyone that is creative has that little insecure. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, you know.
Yeah.
Always like what you've done perhaps is not good enough, or you know, looking for acceptance and looking for any sort of push to keep you going, because those things they really help. They help no matter who it is, even if they're on top of the game or in the low part of the game. Any sort of, you know, recognition really helps to keep you going, because we don't know what's going on in anybody's head. You know, we all have different ways of looking at things, you know.
Oh, I love how you said that. It's like the human connection, like we're carrying each other forward almost in a way.
Yeah.
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 Hey, ladies, thank you for your time. I really
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks for joining us today, and good luck with everything. And we will see you out there in the sphere.
All right.